America's best days are yet to come. That's because conservatives like you know and live the values our great country was built on. The Heritage Foundation exists to make sure your voice is heard in the D.C. swamp each day, shining the light on a bright future. The Heritage Foundation stands for your values and won't give up the fight because they know you never will. Paid for by the Heritage Foundation.
He's here. He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
America, Mark Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. When you have, as we touched on last night, and people are touching on today, but I really need to play this for you, individuals who served in the military, veterans, all of whom are Democrats, put out a video telling the military and intelligence communities to defy the President of the United States, refuse illegal orders. As I said before, I don't know what illegal orders they're talking about. And neither do they. And, I've never seen anything like this, to be perfectly honest with you folks. I just have not. People who served in the military putting out statements like this because they're Democrats. Well, let's take a listen, then we'll discuss this a little bit more. Cut one, go.
I was a captain in the United States Navy.
Former CIA officer.
Former Navy.
Former paratrooper and Army Ranger.
Former intelligence officer.
Former Air Force.
We want to speak directly to members of the military
and the intelligence community
who take risks each day
to keep Americans safe.
We know you are under enormous stress and pressure right now.
Americans trust their military.
But that trust is at risk.
This administration is pitting our uniformed military
and intelligence community professionals
against American citizens.
Like us. You all swore an oath
to protect and defend this Constitution.
Right now, the threats to our Constitution aren't just coming from abroad,
but from right here at home.
Our laws are clear. You can refuse illegal orders.
You can refuse illegal orders.
You must refuse illegal orders.
No one has to carry out orders that violate the law
or our Constitution.
We know this is hard.
And that it's a difficult time to be a public servant.
But whether you're serving in the CIA,
the Army,
or Navy,
the Air Force,
your vigilance is critical.
And know that we have your back.
Because now, more than ever,
the American people need you.
We need you to stand up for our laws,
our Constitution,
and who we are as Americans. Don't give up.
Don't give up.
Don't give up.
Don't give up the ship.
That is shocking, is it not? It's absolutely stunning. It appears no issue is without possible exploitation, I suppose. I mean, the inference here is that the President of the United States is violating the law, that he's a dictator, that he's putting out orders of this sort. It's just crazy. Now, God bless Martha McCullum. She had one of these congressmen on her program, and she fought back hard, but he was making accusations against her, telling her how she was coming off, and not answering her specific question over and over again, which was, what order are you talking about? And we addressed this yesterday somewhat, like, you're selling the violating orders. Why is, in your video, don't you mention what you're talking about? Because they don't. I just think there's so many problems going on in the Democrat Party. First of all, it has transformed into a truly radical entity. You have Senator Slotkin, who ran for the Senate as a moderate. But she's been hard left. Mark Kelly, the former astronaut, also in the military, runs as a moderate. He's hard left. I believe Martha had Chris DeLuzio, that congressman, or it was Jason Crow, I'm sorry. Jason Crow was the congressman she had on. He was obnoxious, arrogant, offensive as hell. What he was saying and the way he was saying it and interrupting her and accusing her of various things was just terrible. But she was tough. She was great. And this is hugely problematic. Every single aspect of this society is under attack. Every one. Under attack. They pretend to stand for the military, when in fact, the military suffered under Biden and the Democrats, slashing their budgets and so forth and so on. Just terrible. Just terrible. So I wanted to play that for some of you who may not have heard it yet. Now I want to get to the Epstein matter. Look how many people were suckered into another phony scandal. Folks, why do you believe? Most of you don't. So the generic you, why do you believe what the media reports? Why do you believe what the New York Times has to say, or the other entities, or even some of the neo-fascists who were June and July and August jumping up and down, attacking Trump? He's withholding the Epstein files. What's in there? He's destroying MAGA. You remember this went on and on, Mr. Producer? All summer long. All summer long. Here's Chuck Schumer on the floor of the Senate today. Listen to this. Cut 10, go.
Once the president signs the bill, he must apply and execute it faithfully. There must be no funny business from Donald Trump. He must not use the excuse of frivolous investigations to release some Epstein documents while intentionally hiding others that deserve to be seen by the American public. This is not an invitation for Donald Trump to pick and choose.
Just to show you how diabolical this man is and how they are. We talked about this a little bit yesterday. There have to be redactions of certain people's names. Not offenders or would-be offenders, but completely innocent people who contributed to the investigation or were interviewed because people had questions and investigators found them to have no role whatsoever. Those are the people that need to be protected. Certainly. We always do that. But what Schumer is anticipating is there may be some of that sort of redaction. And so, no funny business. So now it's funny business. And now they're all pulling the same thing. Here is some guy, Robert Garcia, Democratic California, cut 11, go.
Do you have concerns that the files may have been in any way messed with, tampered with?
Of course I have those concerns. And obviously I don't trust the Trump Department of Justice. But let me lay something else out, which is important to that point. We know that right now the president has a choice to make. He could be honest, he could come clean, and release the files to the American public and bring justice to the survivors. What we expect he's probably doing is by launching this kind of new sham investigation where he's only going after his
So there's already he claiming a sham investigation. See, it's never going to be enough because it was never intended to be enough. They will exploit this as much as they possibly can. They will try and create impressions and pseudo-news. They already have done that, but they're going to continue until they find another thing to latch on to. And it's important that all of us be mindful of this and not fall for this trap as so many neo-fascist so-called influencers have and did. It's crucially important that when accusations are made, the fact that accusations are made, that's not enough, especially from the press, especially when they're anonymous. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Folks, I have a question for you. Do you believe America's best days are still ahead? With the 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence coming up in less than a year, my friends at the Heritage Foundation are taking stock of the current situation, and they need your input. They've launched a survey on America's future to gauge how Americans feel right now about where we are as a nation and where we're headed in the next 250 years. You know, for decades, your American values have been under attack, but now, with President Trump's administration in office, we have an opportunity to turn the tide and usher in a new golden age for America. But the Heritage Foundation needs to hear from you. What policies do patriots like you most care about? What do you believe are the defining principles of America? What legacy do you believe we should pass on to the next generation? Please visit heritage.org/Levin today and share your feedback and help shape the future of America. That's heritage.org/LEVIN. Paid for by the Heritage Foundation. We're going to have CNN's Scott Jennings on the program for the first time in Hour 3. I hope you'll join us. Very good guy. I met him a couple of weeks ago, actually, for the first time. Now, I don't watch CNN, but I see some of the clips. He's really solid. Over at Red State Report, House Democratic Caucus devolves into romper room as retaliation plan for one who went rogue. So here we go. That is the gist of the latest drama playing out among the House Democrat Caucus after the lower chamber voted on Tuesday in favor of the resolution, with 23 Democrats crossing the aisle to vote with Republicans, in what ended up being a deeply humiliating moment, not just for Representative Jesus Chuy Garcia, but for Democratic House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, who had urged his caucus to vote against it. To vote against what? Well, let's find out. In a nutshell, what angered her enough to call for the resolution was Garcia essentially rigging it, that is, the election in his district, so that his chief of staff, Patty Garcia, no relation, would have no primary or general election opponent, with him announcing his retirement over health and family concerns 1 week after filing to run again, and then 1 day after Patty Garcia filed her nominating petition to run for his seat, filing it past just minutes before the November 3rd deadline. So this guy files that he's going to run a week before the deadline, the incumbent does. Then his chief of staff files right before the deadline that she's going to run, then he drops out, Mr. Producer. Isn't that sleazy? Perez's district is considered a swing district, and while I haven't heard any talk of a primary effort against her, rumors are swirling that a type of retaliation is being discussed by the House Progressive Caucus for the crime of her exposing her party's duplicitous nature. In other words, the leftists are coming after her for voting to expose what one of her Democrat colleagues did to ensure that he would have his chief of staff take his seat without any primary challenge whatsoever. They rigged the system. Congressional so-called Progressive Caucus members are privately discussing introducing a retaliatory measure against Representative Perez, Democrat Washington, of her efforts to rebuke Representative Garcia, Democrat Illinois, Axios has learned. The move would escalate simmering tensions between Perez and her Democratic colleagues that some lawmakers say is ruining what they had hoped would be a week of unity. Oh, yeah, Epstein, a week of unity. So far, the only guy that's gotten caught up in what's been released is this guy, Larry Summers, who's a big Democrat, former head of Harvard. I believe he worked in the Clinton regime. Now, to her credit, Representative Perez is not letting the threat of retaliation keep her from speaking out. Her latest revelation is that some of her fellow House Democrats actually congratulated Garcia for what he did to the electoral process. And she is to be attacked, smeared, character assassinated, and potentially defeated because she stepped out and revealed what was being done to ensure that there wouldn't be a fair election or any election at all for a primary battle in what would be an empty seat, that the incumbent... How sleazy is this? He files that he's running the week before the deadline. Then, right before the deadline, his chief of staff files that she's running, and then he drops out. So nobody else has time. Why? Because nobody else filed because they didn't want to go up against the incumbent. So he obviously worked it out with his chief of staff, and hopefully the voters, if it's a marginal district, will do something about this. Just to show you how sleazy these people are. It's like Stacey Plaskett, the Democrat, Virgin Islands, rather. She was on CNN today. No regrets, proud that she was texting Epstein during the hearings and using questions that he was relaying to her. Proud of it. Cut 12, go.
If individuals are not involved in illegal activity, extending his criminal enterprise or his financial enterprise or all of those things, I think that we need to look at what people are doing moving forward.
Wait, let me just better understand that. What is that point? Because at the time he was a known sex offender and it had been detailed all the sexual abuse.
There are a lot of people who have done a lot of crimes, and as a prosecutor, you get information from people where you can. I've interviewed confidential informants. I've interviewed narcotics.
This isn't a criminal case. You're not talking about prosecuting anybody. You're talking about a hearing, and in the case of Epstein, taking information that he's texting to you and regurgitating it. So this has nothing to do with who you talked to in the past. Nothing. Zero. Go ahead.
And others. And that doesn't mean that I'm their friend. Mm-hmm. That doesn't mean that they are friendly with me. It means that they have information.
Nobody said you're a friend or they're friendly with you, although it is strange that he had your confidential cell phone number, personal number. I'm not insinuating anything sexual. I'm just saying how weird it is. She obviously was collaborating with him. He obviously reached out to her somehow and got her number. And she used information that he passed on to her during the course of a hearing to try and screw Donald Trump. And she says, look, I get all this kind of stuff. Former prosecutor. No, that has nothing to do. You're not prosecuting anybody. You're not undertaking a criminal investigation of anybody. You're a representative. Go ahead.
And that I'm trying to get at the truth, and that's what I did.
So no regrets, basically, is what you're saying.
I'm moving forward.
She's moving forward. Okay, let's move forward. I'll be right back. We're coming upon the 250th birthday of the United States, and it has me thinking, what will America look like 250 years from now? My friends at the Heritage Foundation want to know what you think. What policies should America prioritize? What principles should carry us into the decades ahead? As America enters a new golden age, Heritage recognizes that this is the time to take stock and to be intentional about how we shape the future of America. And they can't do it without your input. So please go to heritage.org/LEVIN and let them know what you think is important. Without patriots like you stepping up and speaking up for what you believe in, America as we know it can't survive for another 250 years. Please go to heritage.org/Levin, heritage.org/LEVIN. Take the survey on America's future. This survey takes less than 10 minutes to complete, but it is critical for making sure that the America we pass on to future generations is an America we're proud of. Go to heritage.org/Levin today. That's heritage.org/LEVIN. Paid for by the Heritage Foundation.
They call him Mr. Right, Mr. Conservative, and Mr. Constitution. But you can call him Mark at 877-381-3811.
I don't understand. Every time Israel drops a bomb, it's on our news, but how come every time Russia unleashes missiles and bombs and drones against, it's not Ukraine, it's not on our news? I don't see it. Do you? Gladstone Institute is really one of the great institutes. A lot of thoughtful writers. You got Khalid Abu Tameh, who is a brilliant man. And they have people who are Americans of Arab descent or Jewish descent or whatever. And they do a fine job, really excellent job. And there's a piece that's very important here, and it says, and you've wondered this, you've told me this, why most Arab countries do not want Palestinians. What is that all about? Countries such as Jordan, he writes, and Lebanon had extremely negative experiences with the Palestinian Liberation Organization and other Palestinian armed groups who were trying to overthrow or destabilize their governments. Black September in Jordan in 1970 and the Lebanese Civil War 75 to 1990. Arab leaders often make strong statements, issue condemnations of Israeli actions, and attend high-profile summits that express solidarity with the Palestinians. The gestures, however, apart from Iran and Qatar, are often not matched by decisive steps. The refusal of the Arab countries to absorb Palestinians, including ex-prisoners, is proof why it would be a mistake to rely on the Arab countries to help rebuild and demilitarize the Gaza Strip. President Trump, let's see here, he says needs to bear this in mind. I think President Trump does bear this in mind, as a matter of fact. By now, most Arab heads of state see Palestinians as having caused immeasurable harm wherever they have gone, and as having rewarded with treachery whoever stretched out a hand to them. For the Arab leaders, the Palestinian issue is just another tool to advance their political objectives, shore up their own popular support at home, or unite various factions against a common enemy. I think you see a lot of this with Saudi Arabia. More Arab leaders, in short, he writes, will continue to pretend that they are eager to help the U.S. administration with its efforts to implement the 20-point plan. In reality, they will continue to do their utmost to stay away from the Palestinians, apart from helping them to regroup in the Gaza Strip. I think that's mostly correct. Well, we know they don't want Palestinians in their country. Even though they're fellow Arabs, fellow Muslims, they want nothing to do with them. It's kind of interesting, isn't it? And our friends at the Washington Free Beacon, truly one of the great websites. There's an obscure Belgian nonprofit that filed more than 1,000 international criminal court cases against Israeli soldiers that has ties to Hezbollah. Now, this is why we don't belong to the International Criminal Court and never will, because they could be people, other countries can be bringing all kinds of cases against our soldiers and our leaders, and then we have voluntarily agreed to the jurisdiction of this so-called court, which is left-wing, which is largely anti-Western, believe it or not, and certainly hostile to America. The Hind Rajab Foundation's co-founder, Dayab Abdul Yabadabadu, has described himself as a very proud former Hezbollah member. That's interesting. Lebanese-Belgian activist Dayab Abu Jahjab, who co-founded the Hind Rajab Foundation in late 2024, said he's a very proud former Hezbollah member. He was arrested by Belgian authorities in 2002 for inciting Arab riots in Antwerp and has repeatedly pledged his allegiance to Hezbollah and Hamas on social media. One of Europe's leading anti-Israel activists, he allegedly remains linked to organizations, the report says, associated with the U.S. designated terrorist groups like Hezbollah, Popular Front for Liberation of Palestine, and so forth. The group does not publicly disclose its funding structure, but the watchdog report identifies it as part of Hezbollah's extensive business network ties to families and local diaspora connections across Europe, Latin America, and Africa. The networks, the report says, are known to support front companies, informal trade, layered laundering operations through used car exports, counterfeit goods, commodity trades facilitated through relatives and friendly businesses. And the article goes on with exquisite detail. What do you make of that, America? We have all these front groups with these organizations. It's really really appalling. So you really have to pierce their these layers in order to get to the bottom of what's going on here. So this is a Hezbollah group based in Belgium, which creates the impression that it has nothing to do with Hezbollah or anybody else, for that matter, on that sort. And clearly, it not only does, it is. So that's very troubling as far as I'm concerned. And they file all these complaints again, which is why we should never and will never be part of that so-called court. Hakeem Jeffries, by the way, he's asked about Stacey Plaskett and the texting with Jeffrey Epstein. What does he have to say about it? And by the way, he has a primary opponent, some Marxist who worked with Mondami, I believe, on the city council. Here's Jeffries, cut 13, go.
Obviously, a lot of movement up on Capitol Hill today. And you heard Stacey Plaskett there. She was arguing her texts with Jeffrey Epstein were not illegal. But in your view, were they appropriate?
Well, Stacey Plaskett is not accused of violating any House rule, any law, any statute. And she's clearly and unequivocally denounced Jeffrey Epstein. And I think what the survivors fought for today is the type of transparency that came out of the House.
It's amazing. He's asked about her, this Plaskett, and he addresses everything but that. And then goes on the attack. She's a good lady, and then goes on the attack. Go ahead.
To Donald Trump's desk, where hopefully he'll sign it into law, because at the end of the day, all the American people are asking for is just the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, which is why these Epstein files that Donald Trump and his administration has been hiding for months need to be released.
Hiding for months, and yet the Biden regime never released them. Go ahead.
It's appropriate for her to be texting with Jeffrey Epstein 11 years after he pleaded guilty?
I mean, I have not had a conversation with Stacey Plaskett to discuss this issue because we've been focused today on making sure that there was a decisive vote as it related to the Epstein files.
You didn't have to do anything to make sure there's a decisive vote. All but one gentleman, and he is a gentleman, he made very good, strong arguments, voted to release it. The president asked to release it. He was browbeated and browbeated. And you Democrats said, see, we defeated him. Unfortunately, too many Republicans got sucked into this, as they get sucked into all these phony scandals. People should step back and think about these things. They're coming from the media. There's a lot of leaks taking place and so forth. A lot of agendas behind the scenes, and we need to focus on that. Go ahead.
The work of Representative Massey, of Ro Khanna, but most importantly, the survivors.
Do you plan to talk to her about it?
I think that we successfully defeated...
But this guy won't answer. He just won't answer. Look how they stand up for their own, no matter what, no matter how pathetic. Go ahead.
That lacked any basis, was not credible, and was being brought by an individual who was trying to weaponize this issue to reinvigorate his own failed gubernatorial campaign in South Carolina. It was rejected on a bipartisan basis on the floor today. That's the end of the story.
Yeah, I was just asking if you personally believe messaging with Jeffrey Epstein, who is at that point a registered sex offender, is appropriate for a member of the House Democratic Caucus?
That's the third time you've asked me this question, and I'm going to give you the same exact answer.
But you didn't give her any answer, did you? No. Because you're a coward on this issue. There's no question about that. No question about that. But what about Jeffries himself and fundraising and an email? Cut 14, go.
Well, let me ask you about you, because the White House has been highlighting an email that I'm sure you've seen today that Jeffrey Epstein got in 2013. They say it shows you were soliciting money and dinner from an Epstein. The email was not sent from you. It was sent from a political consulting firm called Dynamic SRG that says, "We are thrilled to announce we are working with Congressman Hakeem Jeffries. Shoot us an email or give us a call if you would like to get involved." What's your response? Do you recall that email being sent to Jeffrey Epstein from that team?
Yeah, of course, I have no recollection of the email. I've never had a conversation with him, never met him, know nothing about him other than the extreme things that he's been convicted of doing. And that's why, I'm just strongly supportive of the effort, backing the survivors to make sure that everything can come out, whatever is in those Department of Justice files.
So you never got a donation from Jeffrey Epstein or anything like that?
Certainly not.
Certainly not. Well, that's a low standard. But nonetheless, we finally got the files. Now, if there's any redactions, well, then Trump's hiding something. That's how you know this is a complete phony scandal. As applies to Trump, it certainly is. A complete phony scandal. I mean, what took place was horrendous. Pedophilia is horrendous. Epstein got away with it for a very long time, as did others. I mean, if it's your daughter, your child, you'd want more than life in prison for a guy like this, wouldn't you? I certainly would. It's grotesque. And yet they're trying to hang it on Trump, and there's nothing to hang on Trump. Nothing. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Folks, I have a question for you. Do you believe America's best days are still ahead? With the 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence coming up in less than a year, my friends at the Heritage Foundation are taking stock of the current situation, and they need your input. They've launched a survey on America's future to gauge how Americans feel right now about where we are as a nation and where we're headed in the next 250 years. For decades, your American values have been under attack, but now, with President Trump's administration in office, we have an opportunity to turn the tide and usher in a new golden age for America. But the Heritage Foundation needs to hear from you. What policies do patriots like you most care about? What do you believe are the defining principles of America? What legacy do you believe we should pass on to the next generation? Please visit heritage.org/Levin today and share your feedback and help shape the future of America. That's heritage.org/LEVIN. Paid for by the Heritage Foundation. President Trump at the U.S. Saudi Investment Forum today. Cut five, Mr. Producer, go.
We've had good relationships and frankly not good. You didn't have a good relationship with Barack Hussein Obama. You didn't have a good relationship with sleepy Joe Biden. But you had a great relationship with me, and now it's as good as it was, and probably even better if you think about it, because we took the dark cloud away from your country. It was called Iran and its nuclear capability, and we obliterated that very quickly and strongly and powerfully.
And there were people who opposed that. It's still mind-boggling, the extent to which they spewed their hate and their poison at me and others, because we certainly supported the president's act. It's the president's decision. And when's the last time we talked about a threat from Iran with nuclear weapons? Not since the president hit those sites. And our pilots with their bombers hit those sites. Go ahead.
Cloud over the whole Middle East, and now they want to make a deal. They want to make a deal. They want to see if they can work out a deal with us, and we'll be doing that probably. But that was a terrible cloud that you had to live with for a long time. 22 years they were thinking about doing that. The B-2s. That was even before the B-2s. Those B-2s, what machines they were, they flew in, they were undetectable, and they dropped their payload, and every single bomb hit its exact mark, which was a shaft going deep into the mountain. And every single one of them hit, and it was total obliteration. And then I was criticized by some of the fake news for saying the word obliteration was too strong, perhaps. They had no idea. Nobody saw it. 3 days later, when the Atomic Energy Commission went, they said it was total obliteration, beyond obliteration, they said. But they want to make a deal. We'll see what happens.
Now let's jump to cut 7. Go.
Americans have rejected the failed, and they were really failed, far left models that you were looking at of high taxes and massive spending, soaring costs, crushing regulations, and trillions of dollars in green new scams. Everything was a new scam, green, green, green. Look, I'm all for the environmental, everything. I'm all for climate change. You know, they have new word, climate change. It used to be global warming. It's global warming. Well, that didn't work because it started coming down. They did the global cooling thing. Then they just said, we can't keep up with this. It's too much. So we'll go, perfect words, climate change. They're covered. If it rains, if it snows, if it's warm, it's climate change is destroying the world. Remember? The world was supposed to have been gone 2 years ago. They gave us 12 years, Howard, to live, right? 12 years. But that was 14 years ago. The world was going to burn up, but it got actually much cooler. They know these people. It's a little conspiracy out there. We have to investigate them immediately. They probably are being investigated.
He is something else. He is funny, and he is to the point, and he exposes these nut jobs. He certainly does. And there's only one Donald Trump, and we're very lucky to have him. And he's making these deals with the Saudis, and I happen to know for a fact that he feels that this investment, the amount of money that Saudi Arabia is investing into the country, that it's not a big deal that they get some of our jets and so forth and so on, considering what that money in the country will do. Create jobs, create new businesses, and so that's the plan. I'll be right back. This segment of the podcast is exclusively sponsored by Pure Talk. Pure Talk offers great coverage and can save your family money on your wireless bill every single month. Go to puretalk.com to find the plan that's right for you. Thank you again for listening, and thank you so much for this sponsorship, Pure Talk.
He's here. He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Hello, America. Mark Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811. 877-381-3811. Stephen A. Smith slams Michelle Obama's claim that America isn't ready for a female president in the New York Post. You know, Stephen A. and I don't always agree, but the guy is typically very thoughtful about what he has to say. Every now and then we trip. I do. Not a lot, but now and then he does. Everybody does. That's okay. But we're talking about in the main, the rule, not the exception. And very, very thoughtful, I think. And he says something that a lot of people would refuse to say or be afraid to say or not say who are in his position. Stephen A. Smith slams Michelle Obama's claim that America isn't ready for a female president, as I did the other day. He's pushing back on former First Lady Michelle Obama's suggestion, writes the New York Post, that Americans are not ready to elect a woman to the White House. On Monday's episode of Straight Shooter, host Smith pointed to newly elected Democratic governors Mikey Sherrill of New Jersey, Abigail Spanberger of Virginia, as proof Americans are willing to vote for female leaders, noting that Kathy Hochul of New York won her election, and that former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton won the popular vote in 2016 presidential election. Yeah, she just didn't win the Electoral College vote. She loaded up the votes in California. But I get his point. Pointing to Clinton's 2.9 million vote margin. Weren't there white women who voted for Donald Trump? Not just white men. Didn't the blacks show up for Hillary Clinton? Didn't Hispanics show up for Hillary Clinton? Wasn't it Hillary Clinton who spent the last few days neglecting to campaign in places like Michigan or Wisconsin or Pennsylvania, or places like that Trump was everywhere? You all remember that? Yeah, I do. I do. Moving on to a more recent example, Smith noted that while former Vice President Kamala Harris didn't win her bid for the White House in 2024, her boss was lost due to Democrats running former President Joe Biden until the very last moment, not Americans being unwilling to vote for a female candidate. He's got that great podcast, Straight Shooter. He said Harris had received more votes than any other Democratic candidate in history and argued that former vice president's hesitation to sit for interviews and separate herself from some of the Biden administration's decisions contributed to her losing the election. And they said, well, actually, she got the second most votes. But his point is well taken. First, second, doesn't matter. Tens of millions of votes. Tens of millions of votes. He also referenced his earlier remarks about Michelle Obama, praising the former First Lady, saying that if she had run against Trump in 2024, she would have won, a belief he still holds. I don't think so, but why does it matter? It's not going to happen. Didn't happen. On Friday, Michelle Obama said Americans are not ready to elect a woman to the White House, and we played that, and you know what she said. You know what she said. She put all of you down. I don't care what your race is, your faith, I don't care who you are. She put all of you down. That's what she did. And he has the courage to speak out about it, as I did, but I didn't need a lot of courage to speak out about it. He needed more courage than I, but that's what he does. The great podcast. He's a good man. I think so for sure. Oh, a lot going on. People are saying we want the president to focus on domestic policy, not foreign policy. You know what's interesting about that? He's been focusing on both. Domestic policy, he got the big, beautiful bill through. He was fighting the Democrats on the government shutdown. He's fighting the Democrats on deportation of illegal immigrants, particularly criminals. He's having to fight them there. He's fighting in the courts to advance his agenda. I mean, what is it? What is it that he hasn't done? I mean, there are other things you can do, of course, but what is it that he hasn't done? I mean, why are people saying he's focused too much on foreign policy? He's focused a lot on foreign policy and a lot on domestic policy. You know, tariffs involve both domestic and foreign policy. Whether you agree with it or not, he's done price controls. I'm not a price control guy, but it doesn't matter. He did what he did with pharmaceutical companies. He did what he did in order to reduce the price of gasoline at the pump by opening up our frontier to more drilling. We had the governor of Alaska on here who made the point that if it wasn't for Trump, almost none of this would be getting done. I mean, he did that for domestic reasons, right? And when you cut taxes for people on their tips, when you cut taxes for certain people on Social Security, when you cut taxes for people working overtime, when you give credits to people who are having to take off from their job or can't find a job because they're helping a loved one who's particularly ill, that's all domestic. When you're taking illegal aliens off of Medicaid, that's domestic. I think he's getting a bum rap here, quite frankly. I think he's spending a tremendous amount of time on domestic issues and has spent a tremendous amount of time on domestic issues, as a matter of fact. And he's also spending a lot of time on foreign policy issues. But for him, unlike a usual president, for him, he sees foreign policy intertwined with domestic policy. That is, he's trying to bring in trillions of dollars from very wealthy countries. Again, argue as you will, but that's what he's doing. Trillions of dollars from very wealthy countries into the United States. to help build up our industries, to help build up our employment. It's actually quite brilliant. But that's what he's doing. Seems to be a lot of focus on domestic policies as far as I'm concerned. And so, again, what happens, it's like this Epstein stuff. People start to repeat what other people say, what other analysts say, what the media say. He needs to focus more on domestic policy. He needs to focus more on domestic policy. Now, maybe there are other things that can be done, but he certainly has been focusing on domestic policy and foreign policy. Both, as far as I'm concerned. I mean, the vast majority of his executive orders, of which there are a couple hundred or more, have been focused on domestic policy. He's fighting DEI throughout our society. More than any president that I can remember, he's fighting anti-Semitism. He's trying to hold colleges and universities to account. This is all domestic right now. All of it. He's trying to bring these international games and sports into the country. That's foreign and domestic, but the impact is domestic. So it's not so black and white when you're working with other countries to try and get them to invest in our country, create jobs in our country, build things in our country. Clearly that's involving foreign policy, but it's impacting heavily domestic policy, and you hope the economy down the road, right? So again, I think he's getting a bum rap on this, that he is focusing on domestic policy and all policy, as a matter of fact. And I think the foreign policy gets a lot more of the attention from the media and others, and a lot of times it's worthy of it. You know, war is a hell of a thing that requires a country's attention. And, of course, the reporting is different. They keep looping and looping and looping and looping stuff. But the government was shut down, at least 17% of it, but parts of it that upset many people and inconvenienced many people, and even worse. I mean, he fought that as much as he could, and he won. And so did the Republicans. He fought it, and they won. Not all, but most of the issues in front of the Supreme Court, I said not all, but most, involving the president and his administration, involve domestic matters. Domestic. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
You know, in all the time I've been supporting Pure Talk, my wireless company, I can honestly say I've never seen an offer like this from them before. Listen to this. Unlimited talk, unlimited text, and unlimited data with a 30-gig hotspot. Just $29.95 a month for life. Friends, this is Pure Talk's top-tier plan, normally $65 a month. Now through December 7th, that's it. Just $29.95 a month. You're saving over 50% a month every month for life. Yes, that's on their crazy fast 5G network. But this offer is extremely short-lived. Go to puretalk.com/Levin. That's Levin for Pure Talk's best unlimited plan. Just $29.95 a month for life. Make the switch in as little as 10 minutes. Keep your phone, keep your number, and start saving with unlimited for life for just $29.95 a month. Again, that's puretalk.com/Levin, puretalk.com/Levin to switch to my wireless company, Pure Talk. Taxes and fees not included. Some restrictions apply. See puretalk.com for details. Offer ends December 7, 2025. Wow. No, I think I'll deal with this tomorrow when we have our guest, Mr. Producer. Ron DeSantis is pushing hard on congressional term limits, something, of course, we've supported for a long time here, including in the Liberty Amendments. And there's just no way Congress is going to limit its own terms. And just as a practical matter, they're the ones responsible for ensuring that they don't. You see these people hang on until they're decrepit. Some of them really have lost their wits. It's sad to watch. Some of them just can't even walk around. I'll tell you why. Because they have all the care they need there, and they have doctors there, and Some of them have drivers and so forth. I mean, in effect, it's almost like a nursing home, except you vote. The way to handle this is convention of states. And it's certainly one of my priorities that I put in my book. Members of Congress should be limited to a certain number of terms. The president is limited to 10 years, only 2 full terms. And they did that in case, a vice president has to step in for a couple of years, but they could still run for 2 full terms, that sort of thing. People are trying to figure out ways around it. There is no way around it. It's called the Constitution. But why shouldn't we have limits on members of the House and Senate? I've heard all the arguments. They're all quite self-serving. I just don't see Congress doing it. Do you? Do you folks see 2/3 of the House and 2/3 of the Senate voting to limit their terms and then 3/4 of the states? Do you? I don't see it at all. Maybe 3/4 of the states to ratify, yeah, but you're not going to get it out of Congress with 2/3 of the vote. It's not going to happen. But I certainly support the effort to put it on the public radar and to do it through convention of states. America's governor, he's a great governor. Abbott's a great governor, too, I must say. There's a couple, but I just know as a resident of Florida what a fantastic job this man has done. He is outstanding. And here he is with fake Tapper. Cut 8, go.
So in a recent New York Times op-ed, you guys wrote, quote, "The House and the Senate are dominated by career politicians, buoyed by re-election rates that routinely exceed 90%, who seem more concerned with clinging to power than serving the public." How will term limits change that, do you think?
Well, one, people support term limits. We're a divided country on so many things. I've never seen an issue. Republican, Democrat, liberal, conservative, black, white, rich, they support term limits. Why? Because we do need new blood in Congress. And people say, well, the election's the term limit. The incumbents hardwire this in with the party nominations, campaign finance, congressional franking. It is not an even playing field. And so doing congressional term limits forces turnover. And I think it will draw a great class of people to want to serve.
He's right. Incumbents have enormous advantages promoting themselves on the public dime, as he's talking about. Just enormous advantages. And constant interviews as the congressman from a particular area or senator from a particular area where the opposition is desperately constantly trying to get the attention of the same media. And they don't have access to the same money. Not every case. Obviously, there are exceptions. And the governor went on further. Cut 9, go.
Fathers did not put in term limits for the president either, but they were added after FDR. President Trump faces those term limits. He is not going to be able to run for re-election in 2028. Are you thinking of maybe running?
I'm not thinking about anything because I think we have a president now who's not even been in for a year. We've got a lot that we've got to accomplish. I'm obviously working hard to continue to put weights on the board in Florida, but look at the election results 2 weeks ago for Republicans. That was not good. We've got to do a good job as Republicans, and I think that should be the number one priority. And the way you do well in the midterm elections is to produce positive results. And so I would focus on that. This jockeying and all that, I don't think is productive for us. Get things done for people. We showed in Florida, when I came in, we were a purple state. Now we're considered a red state because we produce results and people follow it.
Mm-hmm. I would keep an eye on that DeSantis. I don't know if he's going to run or not. I have no inside information. But fabulous governor. The people of Florida, I can tell you, all the people I meet just love him. And now he's focused on trying to reduce property taxes and eventually eliminating them. And you might say, well, that's fanciful. No, he's got a whole plan in mind that would be done over a period of years. He's not talking about commercial real estate. He's talking about residential real estate. And look, their budget is half the size of New York's, and they have 4 million more people. New York City has a bigger budget than the state of Florida. So I think they can pull it off. And part of the problem he sees, and we all see, is that the counties are in charge of property taxes, and like 3/4 in some cases of the money on property taxes go into the school system, and they're not producing. Certainly not well. And a chunk of that, of course, goes to dues for the unions from the teachers, which they then use in turn to destroy the classroom, destroy the mind of our kids, and support the Democrats almost exclusively. That's what's going on. And if you don't pay those property taxes, you lose your house. He's made the point, you know, when you've paid off your mortgage finally, you're not free and in the clear. You have to pay your property taxes every year, your real estate taxes. And in some cases, it's significant. And you have to pay your real estate taxes. So you still have to pay for the right to own your home. The right to own your home. And if you don't pay those property taxes, and all of them, you lose your home to the government. And from a philosophical and principled matter, we've had him on the program talking about that. He says that's unacceptable. You think you've paid off your home, and then you got, you know, the Grim Reaper, the government constantly tapping you. And then you have these teacher unions. They're the ones who make the most money off of property taxes, just so you know. And they're the ones who would hate what the governor wants to do in Florida. So he's quite a leader on these things. And, you know, my view of this, and I talked about it here and on Fox and elsewhere, is don't just believe in conservatism. Don't just speak conservatism. Be an activist. If you're a governor, a senator, congressman, because it works. It's based on our knowledge and experience from the past. It works. And when these things work, people like it and you get votes. That's how you win. And that's a good thing, not a bad thing. Conservatism isn't some fringe viewpoint. It embraces our country. It embraces our history. It embraces capitalism and individual freedom and free will. It embraces the Judeo-Christian belief system. It embraces the Constitution, limited government, checks and balances. It embraces, importantly, property rights, not to redistribute them, regulate them, tax them, but to use them to benefit yourself and other people, and to do things with that property, if you wish to, that contribute to society and the economy. That's how we've become a great country, all these things together. And if you're a governor, don't run from it. Don't get caught on the hamster wheel where you're always passing new laws and taxes and imposing regulations. Get off that hamster wheel and come back home. We'll be right back. You know, in all the time I've been supporting Pure Talk, my wireless company, I can honestly say I've never seen an offer like this from them before. Listen to this. Unlimited talk, unlimited text, and unlimited data with a 30-gig hotspot. Just $29.95 a month for life. Friends, this is Pure Talk's top-tier plan, normally $65 a month. Now through December 7th, that's it. Just $29.95 a month. You're saving over 50% a month every month for life. Yes, that's on their crazy fast 5G network. But this offer is extremely short-lived. Go to puretalk.com/Levin. That's Levin for Pure Talk's best unlimited plan. Just $29.95 a month for life. Make the switch in as little as 10 minutes. Keep your phone, keep your number, and start saving with unlimited for life for just $29.95 a month. Again, that's puretalk.com/Levin, puretalk.com/Levin to switch to my wireless company, Pure Talk. Taxes and fees not included. Some restrictions apply. See puretalk.com for details. Offer ends December 7, 2025.
The Mark Levin Show, live and national at 877-381-3811.
More Michelle Obama. We have an audio from her on that podcast. First of all, she trashes the American people, is unwilling to vote for a woman for president, which is just pathetic. Always pulling that card, the sex card, if not the race card or whatever card it is. And always whining about her circumstances. How many first ladies have we had in this country? Shouldn't you be thrilled that you were First Lady of the United States and the American people put you there? I certainly didn't, but the American people did, a majority of them. And that you so have benefited from it, that you have books coming out where you make multi-millions of dollars, not because you're so brilliant, because you probably haven't written them, maybe edited them, but because you're Michelle Obama. You're the first black first lady in American history. And for a lot of people, that's important. And so they'll buy books. And they'll buy your BS, too, apparently. Here she is. Cut 17, go.
That little 8-year stint as First Lady tends to confine, to be a bit confining, right? Because, you know, that the role, the job was not to just represent me, but to represent the nation.
How appalling is this statement? Truly, how appalling is this statement? Look, it was very confining. And listen, they're whining. We have men and women, white and black and everything in between, who serve in the military and go to war. We have men and women, white and black and everything in between, who become cops. Or maybe they work for ICE or the Border Patrol or whatever. Who put their lives on the line, their necks on the line every damn day. And for what? For peanuts. And she's complaining about that the being First Lady is confining because she has to represent the nation. That's an honor. That's an honor. And she acts like it's a pain in the ass. Well, your husband decided to run for president. You seem to be supporting him. You campaigned with him. But it was confining. Is it confining now? After you were First Lady? No. You've enriched yourself. You've taken advantage of everything this country has to offer, and you're still complaining. You're wealthier than 99.9% of the American people. And that includes white people, as well as black people and everything in between. So what are you whining about? You don't seem to be hurting. You don't seem to be spending time, a lot of time, trying to help certain individuals or organizations or so forth. You seem to have plenty of time to, quote-unquote, write your book. Go on your book tour. And look how people meet you. They applaud you. They want to see you. What is your problem? Go ahead.
Family in that house, just like, black folks feel in all the first positions that we're we're carrying the torch, we're lighting the way, which means that we've got to do it really.
What is wrong with that? I don't understand her. I really don't understand her. You're the first black first lady. Lighting a torch, showing the way. Okay, if that's your view, what's wrong? What's the problem? I'm quite serious. Is this the way other minorities think? No, I had to carry the torch and everything was so confining and so forth and so on. It should be inspiring, and she should be inspiring. She's such a downer. Every time I hear her speak, she doesn't inspire anything or anybody. Tell people how they can make it. Tell people how you made it, even if you have to overcome barriers. Talk about the greatness of the country. How proud you were to be First Lady of the United States. Not how confining it was to represent the nation, how exciting it was to represent the nation. All the wonderful things you were able to do, all the people you had surrounding you, helping you do that. Why can't you talk like that? And if you think the country suck, then point to another country that's better than the United States. You can't. There aren't any. There are none. Zero. Look as hard as you want. There are none. And this is, she sounds spoiled and like an ingrate to me. That's how she sounds. Hey, look, that's how she comes across to me. I call him as I see him. Then she's lashing out against Americans for not voting for her. She's, for women, for president. Well, what if you disagree with the woman? You still got to vote for her? What kind of stupidity is that? Seriously. kind of idiocy? I'm going to vote for her because she has a vagina. That doesn't matter. That's what I'm doing. Why? I want the first vagina as president of the United States, Mr. Producer. And then they say, we can't define a woman. What are you talking about? They have vaginas. No, can't say that. Well, what is it? What is it? We notice it or we don't notice it? We vote for it or we don't vote for it? I'm just putting a fine point on it, if you will, because it's so stupid, in my humble opinion. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
You know, in all the time I've been supporting Pure Talk, my wireless company, I can honestly say I've never seen an offer like this from them before. Listen to this. Unlimited talk, unlimited text, and unlimited data with a 30-gig hotspot. Just $29.95 a month for life. Friends, this is Pure Talk's top-tier plan, normally $65 a month. Now through December 7th, that's it. Just $29.95 a month. You're saving over 50% a month every month for life. Yes, that's on their crazy fast 5G network. But this offer is extremely short-lived. Go to puretalk.com/Levin. That's Levin for Pure Talk's best unlimited plan. Just $29.95 a month for life. Make the switch in as little as 10 minutes. Keep your phone, keep your number, and start saving with unlimited for life for just $29.95 a month. Again, that's puretalk.com/Levin, puretalk.com/Levin to switch to my wireless company, Pure Talk. Taxes and fees not included. Some restrictions apply. See puretalk.com for details. Offer ends December 7, 2025. You know, our time slot really is a wonderful thing because from time to time there's a breaking story. And there is this breaking story. A federal grand jury in Miami has indicted Congresswoman Sheila Cherfilus-McCormick, a Democrat, her brother Edwin Cherfilus, and several co-defendants for allegedly stealing $5 million in FEMA disaster funds, laundering the money, and using it to support her 2021 congressional campaign. Now, the indictment claims the Family Healthcare Company received an overpayment on a COVID-19 vaccination staffing contract, which the defendants allegedly routed through multiple accounts. Some funds were used for campaign contributions, including through straw donors and for personal benefit. Cherfilus-McCormick and her 2021 tax preparer, David K. Spencer, are also charged with conspiring to file a false tax return by misreporting political and personal expenses and inflating charitable contributions. It's a lot of money, $5 million. I guess if she's going to go in, she might as well go all the way in. But, you know, that's like typical ripping off the American people. Ripping off the American people. $5 million? You know what I say to that, Mr. Producer? Holy moly! Now, Sunday's Life, Liberty, and Levin, we had as a guest the great Christopher Smith, representative from New Jersey. Been there a long time. And he's a good friend, and he's a great congressman, too. And he's been focused on the genocidal, attacks on Christians ever since he's been there. There was a gentleman by the name of Frank Wolf who used to represent a good chunk of Northern Virginia, and he typically would get 62% of the vote as a Republican, was a good man. He focused on this, too. That was his focus. And so I wanted to talk about it on Sunday, and I noticed that it's really taken off, this issue of people noticing that, yes, Christians are being slaughtered all over the world, particularly in Africa and the Middle East and communist China. And we've talked about it here many times. I've talked about it on Fox many times. We went back and looked at that too. But I really focused it Sunday, and I noticed there's a lot of attention being paid to this, honestly, since my show on Sunday. And that's a good thing. Oh, and since President Trump mentioned it himself, even before my show, warning Nigeria better cut it out. Now, this has taken place in the Sudan. It's taken place in the Congo, where you have Islamists slaughtering Christians. It's taken place in Lebanon. It's taken place in Syria. And the Israeli Defense Forces have tried to protect the Christians in both of those countries. So Nicki Minaj was at the United Nations yesterday and praised President Trump for prioritizing this issue. And I want you to think about all the good President Trump has done in terms of human rights around the world. He doesn't beat his chest and talk about, we got to advance human rights. He just does it. He got an American out of Saudi Arabia today. I think the person was fairly elderly, but whatever. He got the person out of Saudi Arabia. It's always at the front of his mind to save Americans, to get Americans out of these countries. And he obviously was in a position of great leverage with Saudi Arabia to do that. But here is Nicki Minaj at the UN yesterday. Cut 19, go.
It is an honor to stand on this stage with you and the other distinguished speakers here today to shine a spotlight on the deadly threat faced by thousands of Christians in Nigeria. I would like to thank President Trump for prioritizing this issue and for his leadership on the global stage in calling for urgent action to defend Christians in Nigeria, to combat extremism, and to bring a stop to violence against those who simply want to exercise their natural right to freedom of religion or belief.
Good for her. Amen to her. Very, very important, of course. And this is something I've been talking about a long time. I mean, rather than these influencers spreading the lies, and attacking Jews and attacking evangelical Christians, among others, why not attack what's being done to Jews, and in this case, God knows how many Christians throughout the world. That would be an important use of a microphone and a camera, I think. That would be very important and be very good. I would encourage them to do it. I would encourage them to do it right now. Stop trashing everybody based on their race, based on their faith, based on their political views. Stop it. And this young lady, who's very well known, very famous, obviously, said more in that little time period than any of these other people ever say. And they have a position to really advance the cause of humanity. We try and do that here often as well. Sometimes we succeed, sometimes we fail, but we try. And I think it's very, very important. And what the president has done, again, is fantastic. What do we do about domestic affairs? He does a lot on domestic affairs. He does a lot on domestic affairs. I'm trying, Mr. Producer, to find the most up-to-date, and I can't, the most up-to-date, what is this, audio list. Can you resend that to me, please? I just used it, I know, but there seems to be a little bit of an email problem here right now. Sorry, folks, I'm just, let me try this way. Nope, didn't work. All right, you just sent it, good. I want to just check something out. But I get more emails, folks. It's unbelievable. More texts, overwhelming. So I can't read them all. I just don't have time. And I'm not even a big texter. Particularly with friends and family. Pick up the phone and give me a call if you can. That would be helpful. Next hour, we're going to talk a little bit about Mondani. He's on the move. He's hired the current police commissioner to be police commissioner. She's agreed to it. Tish. I hope she got some conditions. I don't know what it means that she took the job. She'd take the job and talk about supporting the NYPD and allowing them to do their job and so forth. Otherwise, why take the job? We'll get into that a little bit, too. We have a guest, Scott Jennings of CNN fame. I think more people watch Jennings on the internet with the clips that are made than actually watch CNN, because CNN has no ratings. We'll be right back.
He's here. Now, Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Hello, America. Mark Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811. 877-381-3811. I'd be remiss if I didn't first mention that we have a court that has blocked the Texas redistricting plan in an effort to hand the House of Representatives to the Democrats. A federal judge has blocked their efforts to redraw the congressional map, going on about substantial evidence the new districts were racially gerrymandered, and the great governor there, Abbott, really threw down. He was furious and just unloaded and said there wasn't any consideration of race whatsoever. It's a conservative state. He pointed out that the representation, we worked for 10 days together with the legislature and committee hearings, and the decisions were based on the fact that the state is far more conservative and the people are not being represented properly. And so, of course, the judges go into the racially, violates the race. And then they mention that there's a guy by the name of Jeffrey Brown, a judge, the Western District of Texas, who was appointed by Trump. Now, I've explained this before. Let me do it again with district court judges, the lowest federal trial court, or the federal trial court. And when you're picking federal district judges, it's not the same as appellate judges and certainly not the same as Supreme Court judges. Why? Well, there's about 800 of these lower court federal district judges. Not so, obviously, with appellate judges and certainly only 9 Supreme Court justices. So there's a lot of jockeying that takes place and has over the decades, many decades. In fact, well over 100 years. And what is that? You can have 2 Democrats that represent a state, or a Democrat and a Republican that represent a state, or Democrats outside the state who decide that they are going to not allow a vote on the judicial nominee. Now, when it comes to a higher court, that's a fight. That's a battle that'll take place. But when it comes to a lower court, there's just too many of them. So what tends to happen is, for example, if there are 3 vacancies on district courts in, let's say, well, let's pick Texas, and a Democrat, maybe a Schumer, says that's all well and good, but you don't get 3. You don't get to pack the court. Only we, the Democrats, do. And they say, but we'll let 2 of them go through. You can pick 2, but we get to pick 1. The Democrats in the state do. This is often done. Often done. Now, you may say that's outrageous. The problem is you need to put people on the federal bench, and if you can get 2 out of 3, you'll give it a shot. In many cases, just depends on the situation. So while they say this guy's a Trump appointee, we don't know if it's one of those Trump appointees, if you get my drift, or somebody else, or just an actual serious intentional Trump appointee who's just a lame brain. It happens. It's happened more than once in our history, hasn't it? And so that guy ruled that, yes, there's too much race involved in this. It's a problem. And, of course, that's what the Democrats did. They went into court and said this is racist, that this is race-based, and on and on and on. Even though it's not. Now, that clown in California calls himself the governor, Newsom, as the president rightly calls him. He puts a... This guy's getting dumber by the day, by the way. He sounds like a complete idiot. Nonetheless, he cheered on what took place in Texas. And, of course, the irony is he started all this. First down to 9 Republicans in the state, now down to 4. And I'm sure they feel very comfortable that they'll win the race issue because they load up a lot of these districts with minorities who tend to vote Democrat and then claim, well, it's not a race issue with us. Look at us. We're very righteous. We believe in equality. Except when it comes to Republicans. And so that's what he's betting on. But he's a devious man. Devious. And he's a total chameleon. He can be radical left one day and then pretend that he's sort of a moderate the next day. And I mean, what he's done to that beautiful state, that wonderful, vibrant state, is just shocking in record time and appalling as far as I'm concerned. Just disgusting. And that's what's going on in Texas, if you can believe that. And these judges are just a disaster. And, of course, if the Supreme Court straightens it out, see that? They're in the back pocket of Trump and the Republicans. See that? Some big cases I've been warning you about coming down the pike. Birthright citizenship, trade. And hopefully the president can win. Because in my view, he's on the right side of both of those. If Congress really wants to control these trade rules, and let them pass a law that does it. And then you can debate separation of powers from that perspective. But really, for the court to get involved, other than to reverse what the appellate court did, or the trade court did, to reverse it and say, excuse me, this isn't right for us, the judiciary, get out of it. Drop the case and get out of it. Let the two branches duke it out. That's the way the court should rule. Obviously in a more sophisticated way, but nonetheless, that's the bottom line. As far as I'm concerned. We shall see. Do you know what today is? Today's a big day, Mr. Producer. It's the 162nd anniversary of the Gettysburg Address. Now, I suspect I'm the only one who has said that, who has a voice on radio anywhere or on TV. I'm just guessing I'm the only one to say. Wouldn't you guess, Rich? I'm probably the only one to mention that. And sadly, there's a lot of young people who don't have the foggiest idea what I'm talking about. They don't know what happened at Gettysburg. They don't know which side won at Gettysburg. They're not sure where Gettysburg is located. And I don't say this to mock. I say this out of great concern, grave concern, that they're not being taught. And so they are susceptible to the bigotry, racism, and anti-Semitism of the neo-fascists and the Marxist Islamists. Because that's all they hear and that's all they know. I want to read it to you. It's quite short, as you know. My dad wrote a book on this and illustrated it. Now, the Battle of Gettysburg was a horrendous battle. Enormous casualties. Enormous casualties. And it was a massive setback for the Confederacy and Robert E. Lee. Now, why? Because Lee knew that he couldn't outgun the North. The Union had more industry, much more, and a lot more people, more soldiers. So the Union would win, he felt correctly, that if this thing just went on and on and on. So he had to take it to the North. His goal was to inflict enough damage, not just in one battle or two battles, but in enough battles where the Union, where the Federales would say that's enough. Because there was a lot of, not just rioting, but there was some rioting in opposition to the draft. People were getting tired of it, and so forth and so on. It was a 3-day battle. It was an accidental fight. The armies bumped into each other. One heading south, one heading north. It was the Civil War's turning point. Because Lee's invasion of the North was stopped. He was forced to retreat. And this made President Lincoln furious because General Meade, who was the major general in charge of the Union forces, they called him the Army of the Potomac, rather than chase down Lee's forces and put an end to the war, he let them escape. And Lincoln was furious. He said, we could have stopped this right here and then. As Lee's forces were moving to Gettysburg in the hopes of destroying the Union Army, the two armies bumped into each other. And the battle began. And One of the generals made sure the battle began because they were very concerned that Meade would find a way not to fight. And so one of the generals for the North did, in fact, start the fight. And you've heard about, well, maybe you haven't, all kind of battles: Cemetery Hill, Culp's Hill, Little Round Top, Devil's Den, Peach Orchard, I can name them all. 3 days. Between 46,000 and 51,000 soldiers from both armies died that day. Imagine, Mr. Producer. That's as many that died in the Korean War, as many that died, a little short of the number in the Vietnam War, in 3 days. The Gettysburg Address was 371 words long. I'm going to read it to you later in the program, because I don't want to be rude to our upcoming guest, Scott Jennings, but I want to read it to you. It won't take long. We'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Welcome back, America. We're here with Scott Jennings. We've never had Scott Jennings on the program before. He's a commentator on CNN, but he had a life before that, too. He's a good man. Got to meet him for the first time a few weeks ago. He's written a fantastic new book, A Revolution of Common Sense, How Donald Trump Stormed Washington and Fought for Western Civilization. Scott Jennings, how is it to be in friendly territory here?
Well, it's I don't know how to do anything without people trying to interrupt me every 6 or 7 seconds. I'm going to try to get through it here, great one, and I'm honored by being on your show. I'm a big admirer of yours, and I enjoyed meeting you a few weeks ago as well.
Likewise. You're a class act, and we very much appreciate what you're doing. It's not an easy job over there, but God bless you. This is a fantastic book. You conducted a lot of interviews here, too, including the big guy, the president, didn't you?
I did. The president, most of the cabinet, Marco, Scott Bessent, Elon Musk, which had some eye-popping quotes in his chapter. But they gave me some access. I wanted to learn about how the president manages things, and the nerve center of the government really is the Oval Office right behind the Resolute desk. I don't know who was running the country before, but I know who's running it now.
Yeah, that was in the side room with the machine over there that did the signature. But
that's right.
Well, let me ask you this. Now that you brought up Elon Musk in that chapter, first of all, what was it like talking to him? And secondly, what was it that jumped out, not only in his quotes, but about him? I mean, he's an extraordinary person.
Well, he really is. And, my first question to him was, why are you here? And he said, I'm trying to find a way to make America not go bankrupt. He had, was stoic. He wasn't overly emotional, but he had strong feelings about our fiscal situation, the devaluation of our currency, the mass migration crisis that's infecting the West, both in Europe and in the United States. And he, of course, cares about the birth rate. He thinks all these things are converging to lead to the downfall of America and ultimately the downfall of the West. And I think he was bent out of shape the day that I talked to him, because I don't think he really found Washington to be as concerned or alarmed about these problems as he is. He thinks they're urgent, and he doesn't think the politicians are treating them as urgently as is required.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think he's right, don't you?
Yes, I mean, look at the debt. Look at the convergence of our fiscal situation, of what we've done to American culture. I mean, Europe is already overrun. We're the last best hope of the West. I think Donald Trump knows that, and he's fighting every day for it. But you got a lot of people in Washington, D.C. that don't understand how close we are to losing this country. And we're on the brink of our 250th anniversary. It's a good time to remind everybody about what makes America great, and that we're on the brink of losing it if we don't fight for it.
It's so true. That's Scott Jennings. The book is A Revolution of Common Sense, How Donald Trump Stormed Washington and Fought for Western Civilization. Get it at Amazon.com right now. Any major bookstore. I want to encourage you to do it. It's a great, great book, and he's an excellent author. Is this your first book? I don't mean to offend if it's not.
No, it is. First try, and I'm, it's been a labor this year to get it out. I started in February, and I told the president if he would cooperate, I'd have it out by the end of the year, and I delivered. I saw him Monday night, and we had a nice chat about it. But he was very generous with his time and opening up the administration, and I really enjoyed getting to know him.
Now, getting to know him, how long have you known him? Probably not that long, and yet you probably feels like you've always known him, right?
Well, he's dominated every professional and personal conversation I've had for the last 10 years, but I didn't really meet him and spend any time with him until February the 10th. and that of this year, and that's the day I pitched him on the book. But he knows me, from television, right. And he had a lot of opinions about how I've done over the years, but I was more than happy to stand up for him in the campaign. He's a TV producer, and he'll tell you all about it. But getting to be around him, watching him interact, he's a good listener. He likes debates. He asks good questions. He's extremely decisive. He's very warm. He's very funny. And he's also very hospitable. This guy give you the hat off his head if he thinks, you would like having that. And so I learned a lot about the man. And I think the caricature of him in the media is totally wrong. It's not what I experienced with him at all.
It's totally misrepresented. And of course, he's a counterpuncher. And they say the most horrendous things about him, or the timing of what they say is so awful. And he responds in plain English, not like a politician, and I guess this gets some people upset. It doesn't get me upset. So what, you explain it in the book. It's a lot to write a book. You got to spend a lot of time on it, as you just mentioned. So what motivated you to do this? You felt you really needed to put together a case for what's taking place with the president and his administration?
Yes, I imagine that 100 of the usual Washington suspects would come along and write books crapping on our president because they don't understand what he's doing. They're dedicated to tearing him down, and they're dedicated to lying to the American people about him and his motivations. And I told him I thought somebody who liked him and who appreciated him and who voted for him and that thinks he's on the right track ought to give that perspective in a book. And we talked about how I would lay it out, and he agreed to cooperate. And I also told him that phrase that he used in his inaugural, a revolution of common sense, was the exact perfect way to describe the rebranding of the Republican Party under Donald Trump. In Michigan, on his 100th day in office, he said to a rally, whether you're right or whether you're left or whatever you are, it's just common sense. That is how he built this broad coalition. And when he said that in January, I thought that is going to be the title of a book, and I was happy to write it for him.
A Revolution of Common Sense, How Donald Trump Stormed Washington and Fought for Western Civilization. It's a brand new book. It just came out. You can get it at Amazon.com, any major bookstore. Let me ask you a question. Are you concerned about what's happening on the right with conservatism, with MAGA, the nature of some of the debate and so forth? I mean, I'm deeply concerned about it, and we got to get this fixed.
Yes, I'm very concerned that there are people who are showing up and claiming to be conservatives and saying, well, because I'm one of you, you must accept my crazy ideas. Like, maybe Hitler had a point, or maybe Stalin was good, or maybe, Israel isn't our ally. They're not conservatives. They're not here to help us. They're here to divide and destroy us. And I think the sooner we recognize that and the sooner we take out the trash, the better off we'll be, is my opinion.
Yeah, I'm with you 100%. All right, we're going to take a short break. We're going to be back with Scott Jennings. And during this break, you can run over to Amazon and get your copy, and it'll show up on your step tomorrow. That's A Revolution of Common Sense, How Donald Trump Stormed Washington and Fought for Western Civilization. You're going to love this book, folks. It's a fantastic book. He's a great writer. We'll be right back.
Mark the pen. The thunder on the right. Call in now. 877-381-3811.
We're here with Scott Jennings. He's a good man. He's over there at CNN doing battle every day. And he's written a fantastic new book, strongly recommended by the president. A Revolution of Common Sense, How Donald Trump Stormed Washington and Fought for Western Civilization. It's on all my social platforms. You can get it at Amazon.com tonight. Get it tomorrow. And it's in every major retail store. So check it out. I know you're going to like it. And it really is a counter to the left that distorts and corrupts, the whole history of this administration. And he went in there and he did the legwork and he interviewed the president, many cabinet secretaries and others. It's a fascinating book. You interviewed a number of cabinet secretaries. Did anybody surprise you in a good way or a bad way?
Well, I knew Marco Rubio for some years, and I'm not surprised at all that he has been the most consequential player for the president. But the person I did not know at all was Scott Bessent. Mm-hmm. And I met him for the first time the same day I met the president on February the 10th. But then I spent some time with him at the Treasury Department. And I think he has been an absolute rock star. He's a good communicator. He was a quarterback on the big, beautiful bill. He's handled the president's economic agenda here and internationally. He's taken a lot of tough questions every day. he told me a little story about the president. He has a picture of Lincoln over his desk. I said, "Is that your favorite president?" And he said, "No, it's Teddy Roosevelt." And I think Donald Trump is the modern Teddy Roosevelt. You read about him, he just kind of overwhelmed people with his force of personality. I think that's what we have with Donald Trump. So he's a true believer, but I think he's been an absolute beast for the president, done a terrific job.
That's funny because I think Trump views himself as more of a McKinley. Maybe he's kind of a mix of the two. Who knows?
I've got a section about Trump's views on McKinley in the book and how he views that period in our history as, sort of a golden age for America. So I think you're right about how Trump views himself. But Besson he's a really candid guy. I mean, he's not as buttoned down financial guy. Like, you get him talking, and he's pretty colorful.
Yeah, and you can see that on TV, right? He comes back. I mean, when they try and skewer him over the economy or something, he has answers, man, and they're not pat answers. He's just quick on his feet. I guess you saw that.
Oh, yeah. He is a great counterpuncher as well, just like the president. And, he takes no crap off these guys. And honestly, that's what it takes. I mean, Trump faces a nonstop propaganda machine, okay? Like, that's all it is. And if you don't fight them and you don't fight back, you have no chance to correct the narrative. And they're facing it on the economy. They're facing it on immigration. They face propaganda campaign every day. And so he needs people like Besson and others who are willing to engage in the fight and not shy away from it. So I think most of his people are, but that's what it takes.
What do you make of a chapter on the trade war, and what do you make of the president's use of tariffs? I've argued, whether you like it or not, I think they're constitutional, what he's done, and Congress hasn't tried to stop him, and Congress can try and stop him. I mean, I know the Republicans control Congress, but that's the nature of an election, and most of what he does really is intertwined in some way or to some degree with foreign policy or national security interests, or trying to force diplomatically other countries to drop their tariffs. I mean, how's the court going to sort this out if they rule against him? I'm just curious.
Well, I will tell you, the arguments sounded like they may be leaning in that direction. I'm not a lawyer, but that's how I read it.
Right.
B, if they do, he will be apoplectic, as you know, because this is his longest and most deeply held view about how useful tariffs are. And C, I think you hit the nail on the head about how he views it, not just as an economic tool. He thinks they're diplomatic tools. He thinks they're national security tools. He thinks that because of the power to tariff, he was able to bring people to the table and forge peace agreements around the world. And so if they take that away from him, he is going to be beyond angry. And I asked him once, what will happen if they do? And he said, we'll be a weak country, and it'll make us the laughingstock, and the president won't have the power and the tools that he needs to do what he's constitutionally mandated to do. So I don't know how they'll unwind it, because I guess if they rule against him, they'll have to pay back some money. But who do you pay it to? And how does that work? It will be a complete and total mess at the Treasury if they do that.
And going forward, how do you determine if something's more or less foreign policy or diplomacy or whatever versus more or less domestic tariff related? That is the power of the purse. I just don't see how they unravel this thing. And it'd be better, in my view, well, let me ask you this, Scott. It'd be better, in my view, for the high court to say, hey, look, we can't settle this. The two political branches have to settle this. And once it's reached a point where they're really going at it, they're really sort of at loggerheads, then we'll intervene if they ask us. But right now, it's way premature, because I can't see judges, with 2 or 3 clerks sitting around, that's more international relations, that's less international relations. And Congress hasn't taken a single move to address what the president's doing. So why not let it play out?
Well, that would be one way to play it, is to say, look, we're not going to do your job for you, Congress. If you're mad about it, do something about it. I mean, you can make that argument on a number of issues where Congress has been hands off and the president or the executive branch has had to step in. That's one way to play it. I didn't sense that in the arguments. Maybe that's the direction they will go.
Me neither.
That would be a way to play it. And, there'll be some people who say, look, it's the power to tax and only Congress can do that. There'll be some people who agree with you and the president that it's more diplomatic in nature. He would certainly argue that. Honestly, it's probably the most consequential decision he'll face. And as you know, he has confronted the courts on a number of issues here, but this is by far the most consequential thing because of how much he believes in the power to tariff and what it means for the country.
There are things he can do if they rule against him. I mean, Reagan, who I worked for, used quotas on Japan, and also you can use licenses. There are other tools he has, but I guess my point here is who makes this decision? Certainly the courts can't figure this out. Look, if Congress doesn't bark, it doesn't mean you still don't have a separation of powers problem. My point is it's not far enough along to figure out for a court how to answer this. But we'll see. I mean, when the Chief Justice says it's a tax and that's it, but he's wrong. It's not just a tax and that's it. How about a regulation? The federal government, the executive branch issues regulations all the time. Those are a tax. Nobody's questioning whether a regulation per se is unconstitutional. All right, I'm moving too far afield. I want to get back to your book. Fighting for peace. This is the peace president, isn't it? He talks about peace through strength, but he wants peace. I mean, he's really driven by this.
He really is, and you talk to him long enough about it, and you realize this man hates war. He hates the concept of people dying needlessly, and he believes it's his responsibility as the president of the most powerful country to step in when it makes sense and solve it, and he has done it. I mean, he should have already won the Nobel Prize, but he certainly should win it next year, and now it sounds like from the news tonight, he's got some deal on the table that may be moving Russia and Ukraine towards something if he solves that. I mean, it is a monumental record on foreign policy. We used to talk about these issues as war and peace. Now we talk about him as peace and war because he's peace first. Now, what I have admired about him is that he will engage militarily at the right moment, like he did on Iran, which was a righteous, moral, necessary decision, like he's doing on Venezuela, which I think is also righteous. But his instincts are for peace and his instincts are for life. And I think that's why a lot of conservatives love him. I mean, ultimately, it's a pro-life thing to try to stop the killing around the world. And that's exactly what he's done.
Well, Scott Jennings, you have a hell of a book here. I want to encourage my audience to grab a copy, A Revolution of Common Sense, How Donald Trump Stormed Washington and Fought for Western Civilization. You're going to love the book, folks. I mean, this is firsthand. He's interviewed people. He's used his intelligence, which is very significant, to reason through a lot of this, too, and to make the case that this is a profound presidency and what's taking place right now. You know, I'm glad you didn't write this at the end of the presidency. You're writing it now so people can actually watch what's taking place as well as digest your explanations for it and the explanations by cabinet members as well as the president. So it's a really important book right now, A Revolution of Common Sense. Grab your copy. It's great for the holiday. Scott Jennings, what a great pleasure. You're terrific, my friend.
Thank you for having me on. It's an honor to be with you, sir, and really appreciate your moral clarity on some of these issues of the day. Your voice is so necessary right now, and I'm proud to be on your show. Thanks for the time.
Likewise, brother, and have a wonderful Thanksgiving. God bless. Let me tell you something, folks. I met him for the first time at the Republican Jewish Conference in Las Vegas. It's a real class act, very nice guy and sharp as hell. And so I'm just very glad he wrote this book. I want to encourage you to grab a copy. And it is A Revolution of Common Sense, How Donald Trump Stormed Washington and Fought for Western Civilization. And the good thing, when a book first comes out, it's discounted the most. Amazon does it because they order a lot and they want to push them out. Amazon is about quantity, sales. But also, a lot of the retailers now are discounting as well. And so you'd be wise to grab this as a gift book and so forth and so on. I encourage you to do it. We'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
So the president just signed that Epstein bill, and he has a brilliant statement, actually, that he put out right on. He said Jeffrey Epstein, who was charged by the Trump Justice Department in 2019, not the Democrats, was a lifelong Democrat, donated thousands of dollars to Democrat politicians, was deeply associated with many well-known Democrat figures, such as Bill Clinton, who traveled on his plane 26 times, Larry Summers, who just resigned from boards, including Harvard, sleazebag political analyst Reid Hoffman, Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, who asked Epstein to donate to his campaign after Epstein was charged, Democrat Congresswoman Stacey Plaskett, this is fantastic, and many more. Perhaps the truth about these Democrats and their associations with Jeffrey Epstein will soon be revealed, because I've just signed the bill to release the Epstein files. As everyone knows, I asked Speaker of the House Mike Johnson and Senate Majority Leader John Thune to pass this bill in the House and the Senate respectively. And because of this request, the votes were almost unanimous in favor of passage. In my direction, the Department of Justice has already turned over close to 50,000 pages of documents to Congress. Don't forget, the Biden administration didn't turn over a single file or page related to Democrat Epstein, nor did they ever even speak about him. Democrats have used the Epstein issue, such as it is, which affects them far more than the Republican Party, in order to try and distract from our amazing victories, including the great, big, beautiful tax cut bill, strong borders, no men and women's sports or transgender for everyone, ending DEI, stopping Biden's record of setting inflation, lowering prices, biggest tax and regulation cuts in history, ending 8 wars, rebuilding our military, knocking out Iran's nuclear capability, getting trillions of dollars invested in the USA, creating the hottest country anywhere in the world, and even delivering a huge defeat to the Democrats from the recent shutdown disaster. For years, our great nation has had to endure Russia, Ukraine, Ukraine. Impeachment hoax number 1, impeachment hoax number 2, and many other Democrat-created witch hunts and scams, all of which have been so terrible and divisive for our country, and have been done to confuse, deflect, and distract from the great job that Republicans and the Trump administration are doing. This latest hoax will backfire on the Democrats, just as all the rest have. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Make America great again. That is a fantastic statement. A fantastic statement. It really is, and it does sum it all up. I want to swing into the Gettysburg Address that I promised you some time ago. 162nd anniversary of the Gettysburg Address. Now tell that to family and friends. Nobody else will remember that. Sad, isn't it? How important that battle was and the effect it had on the nation. Just sad. 77 years ago, our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation, conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. Now we're engaged in a great civil war, testing whether that nation or any nation so conceived and so dedicated could long endure. We're met on a great battlefield of that war. We've come to dedicate a portion of that field as a final resting place for those who here gave their lives that that nation might live. It's altogether fitting and proper that we should do this. But in a larger sense, we cannot dictate, we cannot consecrate, we cannot hallow this ground. The brave men living and dead who struggled here have consecrated it, far above our power, our poor power to add or detract. The world will little note nor long remember what we say here, but it can never forget. It can never forget what they did here. It is for us, the living, rather to be dedicated here to the unfinished work, which they who fought here have thus far so nobly advanced. And then it goes on, one more paragraph. In fact, everybody remembered what he said there. He thought it was, at the end, it was poorly accepted and so forth and so on, when in fact, it was celebrated as a fantastic speech. Boy, it's been a packed program this evening. I want to thank you very, very much. We're going to have another one tomorrow night. Same place, same time. We salute our armed forces, police officers, firefighters, emergency personnel, our truckers, the men and women in Ukraine, the men and women in Israel, you, the American people, red-blooded Yanks. God bless each and every one of you. I'm blessed that you're here. Thank you so much. Keep hope alive. Somebody once said that. See you tomorrow. Be well.